welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 209 for the 20th of October, 2012. Richard Saunders with you from a definitely getting warmer, Sydney, Australia. On this week's show, more from the amazing meeting in Las Vegas and our friend and reporter Maynard. Maynard speaks to Shane Greenup, an Aussie, living in Chile, about a project he's involved with called Rebuttal. R-B-U-T-R. Got something you'd like to rebut? Seen a website that needs rebutting? The Rebuttal plugin might be for you. Find out more coming up when Maynard interviews Shane Greenup. After that, Maynard speaks to a very enthusiastic young delegate at the amazing meeting all the way from Virginia. I don't know her name. So, mysterious person from Virginia whose voice I don't know if I recognize or not. I probably should. If you know who you are, please write to me and I will mention you on next week's podcast. But you do have a lot of interesting things to say to Maynard. And then Maynard wraps up his TAM interviews for this week with an interview with Surly Ramix Amy Davis Roth, or Surly Amy as she's known. Now, some of you may remember that video the Skeptic Zone put out about a year or two ago, how it's done applied kinesiology. Well, one of the props we used in that to demonstrate how these things do or don't work was a Surly Ramic little pendant, and on it states, "Science saves lives." Then to round off the show, a little opinion piece I wrote all about predictions. Yes, in December and January, probably all around the world, the media's full of people making predictions. What's coming up for the year ahead? I hear my thoughts about that a bit later. Now, during the week, I took some time out and I watched a relatively new documentary, Ancient Aliens Debunked, by Chris White. And there's a website for that video. It goes for over 3 hours, ancientaliensdebunked.com. And I was really enjoying it. It was fantastic. It is amazing job. Take my hat off to Chris White for the research and his friends have done to put this together. And then a couple of things sort of confused me a little bit as I was watching it, because he was doing such a great job in dismantling bad arguments. A couple of things about Noah's flood and angels, and I wasn't quite sure. So I went to the internet and I sort of found that maybe Chris White isn't as skeptical as he could have been in certain aspects of the film. But I don't want to play the heavy hand here and make too many comments. There's a lot of back and forth on the internet about it, especially at skeptic.com. Look, I enjoyed it. There's bits in it where we can question what's really going on and maybe the motives of Chris White, but by and large, and I think I heard the expression, well, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The documentary, by and large, is certainly worth a look. Start watching it, see what you think. I can recommend that you have a look. And then, but bear in mind that there's some controversy about it, and you can Google that, check it out. But don't let that stop you from watching it in the first place, if all that sort of makes sense. Ancient Aliens Debunked. And before we get stuck into the Skeptic Zone, just today I was at Prince of Wales Hospital here in Sydney in Randwick, between Randwick and Coogee, and I'm sure Sydney-siders know where that is, to visit my brother, who had a hip replacement operation. Very young man to have a hip replacement operation, but his hip wasn't working too well. He's recovering very nicely. And anyway, on my way into the hospital, I noticed there was a big sort of impromptu market. I suppose they have that every month or every couple of weeks. I don't know, really. And you could buy socks and gadgets and all sorts of things, selling them in tents. I was looking around, and there was somebody selling detox foot patches and ear candles at a hospital. Ear candles. So I looked at them and I looked a bit shocked. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, they're ear candles. And I said, really, here? And he said, what, are they too alternative for you? I said, no, they're too dangerous. And I rattled off about 8 quick-fire reasons as to why they're dangerous and not a good idea. He was a little bit taken back. But I didn't spend any time arguing with him. I just told him the reasons, and then I said, I will let the hospital know that this is not a good thing, and walked off. So that's what I'll do. I'll write to the Prince of Wales Hospital and say, by the way, you really shouldn't have somebody selling this major quackery, and dangerous quackery to boot, at a hospital. Well, we do our best. Now, this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone is one of those shorter ones. I'm somewhat swamped at the moment. I'm just about to fly out to California, and there's other things sort of happening in the background there, so I hope you don't mind the slightly abbreviated Skeptic Zone. Always good content, and of course we always thank Maynard for that. And don't forget, as we keep reminding you, that the Australian Skeptics National Convention's coming up. Visit www.vicskeptics.wordpress.com for more information, or skepticzone.tv. Hope to see you there. Whew. All right, far too much out of me for this introduction. Maybe if I keep talking, the show will be longer because the introduction will be longer. No, I won't do that at all. I'm going to run downstairs, folks. I won't disappoint you. I'm going to run downstairs. I'm going to have some smoked salmon on toast. Smoked salmon on toast. Or lox, I think they call it in North America. A roast by any other name would taste as yummy. While I munch my salmon, I'll let you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Look, well, I'm here scenically near the men's toilets, as, look, basically that's where most truth, and women's toilets too, because basically the toilets is where people speak their mind, and we're close enough to have the mind spoken of. Shane, how are you, Shane?
I'm great, thanks.
What do you think of this year's TAM?
I'm loving it. I haven't got anything to compare it against. It's my first one, but it's been awesome. I've been talking to so many just interesting, intelligent people, and the subject matter is just something that I love.
And because you're based in South America now.
Yeah, I'm living in, not only in Chile, but in southern Chile, at the base of a volcano, in a little town called Pucón.
Can we call it Chile, or is that just an affectation, like diversité?
No, that's what the Chileans call it. It's Chile.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure I get it right there. And you've moved there, but you've been working on Rebuttal, which sounds like a very interesting... it sounds kind of evil. It could take over the world. I like it, like Skynet.
It's funny you mention that, because when we were first developing it and I was sort of thinking of ways to market it, way to reach out to people, I had this vision of a comic with Rebuttal Man running around punching people in the face saying, "You're wrong." We haven't worked on that yet, but I just had a visual of it.
So have you got a hollowed-out volcano that you have your master plan sitting there stroking a white cat going, "Rebuttal, it will conquer all"?
I think you just outlined our strategy.
Oh, well, there you go. but mind you, that's a great elevator pitch. Wow, you've got a white cat and a holdout volcano. Here's some money. What does this Rebuttal do?
Yeah, okay. So we're building basically a database of connections between rebuttal articles on the internet and the pages that they're rebutting. So the first implementation of this is a browser extension. So you install it into Chrome, and as you're browsing the internet, whenever you land on a page which has been rebutted by someone somewhere on the internet, an alert pops up saying this page has been rebutted. And then you can click through on our button, and it takes you through to a page which argues precisely against the page you're looking at. So it delivers to you opposing perspectives, and it makes it really easy to follow through debates that are happening between different websites.
Oh, now, that can be incredibly subjective. How does a computer algorithm do that?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's actually been attempted. People have tried to do it, but natural language processing, as they call it, isn't at that level yet. So we can't write software that's good enough to identify context and intention. So at this stage, it's all crowdsourced, meaning we need a vibrant, active community to help us out.
And now, would that just necessarily be extraordinary claims, or could someone do a rebuttal to a peer-reviewed scientific article?
Yeah, it can be done to literally anything. Ideally, anything that makes a claim. So, peer-reviewed scientific articles could be rebutted via our system, and equally, like pages that are selling products could be rebutted. So, it can be used on just any URL.
What about the arts and the humanities? Like, you get a Maynard.com.au, and the rebuttal can be, well, he's not funny.
It could be done. What we hope will happen is with a vibrant community, they would just vote that down. So there's going to be processes involved where if someone adds a rebuttal and it gets a lot of negative votes, then it'll just be removed from the... It'll be hidden, basically. So there will be... Again, the whole thing will be crowdsourced so that the community decides.
See, I can see alternative practitioners crying... conspiracy, and the skeptics and they are against me with this new rebuttal evil thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will. But
and so you're going to have to figure out what pocket you're in. Some people are in the pocket of Big Pharma, so everyone's in the pocket of something. So you're going to have to have one when they ask you.
Yeah, yep. I think I'll deny everything. Okay. I'm sure I'll be accused of it. But, the tool's set up to be completely neutral. So it's as effective as our community is. So if, the CAM bodies that are out there, all the homeopaths and everything, feel like they're being unfairly targeted, then it's up to them to mobilise and participate and to add their own rebuttals. And this is one of the things that a lot of skeptics are concerned about, that rebuttal can be used just as effectively, arguably, by homeopaths to rebut skeptical arguments. But, of course, this is actually what I'm hoping for. I want them to participate. I want them to add their rebuttals, because that creates a discussion.
Well, yeah, and eventually that's what we're all about here. We want to have a discussion, bring the evidence out, and have a look at it in the light.
Yeah, and that's it. And I have absolute faith that if the homeopaths present their best arguments and the skeptics present their best arguments, at the end of the day, the skeptics are going to come up tops. But we need them to interact, because at the moment, the only people that read our arguments are us. I want them interacting. I want them participating.
What's a good way to get the every person to have this plug-in on their browser? I guess maybe down the track you're looking at like an easy-to-install app on the phone or something like that would make it easier for the regular person who's not going to participate but want to read both sides to have a look.
Yeah. So that's exactly our ultimate goal. So the stage right now is building the community that makes the network, makes all the links, adds all the rebuttals. We need to have that core of activity so that the average person has something to react to. They need some content there to work with. So we're starting at stage one. Once we've got that, then we've got quite a few plans in place to reach out to the average person. And the great thing about, we lump everyone as this average person sort of thing, but everyone has an interest or a obsession with some subject or another.
No, I can't get enough Eric von Daniken.
Yeah. But thanks.
Hang on, I'm sorry. I've thrown your rather large ape brain off there by bringing up the...
I don't know who he is. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Oh, come. You mean you are behaving as if Chariots of the Gods was never written, sir?
I'm sorry. Whichever gods I've offended.
That's okay. And so everyone's got their own thing. Everyone's got their own bugbear. Yeah. Everyone's got their own woo that gets their goat.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be woo. Like, a lot of people are interested in politics. And rebuttal can be used for politics. So someone who's, a staunch Democrat or Republican or Liberal or Labor, whatever it is, they may go in to participate in that debate. They may install it so that they can have their arguments presented to the other side of that debate. And now they've got it installed, they'll be presented with skeptic arguments. And
how does it look on your screen? Like, say I go to any page, how will the rebuttals be made known to me?
We actually have an on-screen pop-up. So once you've installed it, it just appears as a tiny little square in your browser. You don't even notice it's there. Whenever you hit a page which has been rebutted, a square pops up in the top right-hand corner. It's quite out of the way, but hopefully large enough that you notice it. And it sits there for 5 seconds saying this has been rebutted and then disappears.
So how do you go designing a graphic interface like that? Because like you said, you want something that will get people's attention, but you don't want something that's going to annoy them as they surf the net and eventually, unplug it.
Yeah. Systematically. It's a lot of testing and experimenting and seeing how people react. At this point in time, we've got one developer and he's got his own job as well. He's working as hard as he can. Amazing guy. And
he's not sleeping a lot, and he's drinking a lot of stimulants.
Yeah, we won't go into that.
It is South America.
Actually, he's in Sydney, but anyway.
Yeah, it's South America.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and working really hard on the whole thing. And did you originally come from this from a skeptical perspective, or you came from it from a political perspective, or you just thought, we just need to let people see a few more angles to any situation?
Yeah, mostly the last one. Quite honestly, I came from a very personal perspective. I was frustrated. I read an article which happened to be on anti-vaccination, saying vaccines cause illness. And I read the study that it was based on. And the study was complete rubbish. And I have a background in molecular biology, so I understand how science works. And I could just see right through it. But the problem is that a friend on Facebook shared this article, which means that someone that I'm friends with thinks that this is a great idea and this is a great article. And I really wanted to show them the problems with it. And there's just no way on the internet to go, I want to see a well-structured argument against what I'm looking at. Google doesn't provide anything like it. Google's great for finding broad subject material. But when it comes to a specific response to a specific thing, it's really inefficient at that. So I'm trying to address a problem which frustrated me literally for a year. It took me a year to get to the point of actually doing anything about it because I was trying to find someone else that had already done it. So,
look, how can we find this and give you feedback on what we think of your plugin?
Yeah, so it's at rbutr.com, which is rbutr.com. Just 5 letters, hopefully easy to remember. And or just searching Google for Rebuttal will work as well. And then you can install it within a minute, very easy to install. And then there are feedback systems in the program, and there's a contact page, of course, as well, so you can email me. And where.
And look, how are things for science and reason in Chile?
Hopefully not offending anyone. They have a very strong Catholic background, and
is it perhaps like Spain, where Spain very strong Catholic background, but people use it as more of a way of getting together and a societal thing rather than a belief in a creator that they think about constantly?
Yeah. It's probably too soon for me to say. I've only been there for a few months and I can't speak Spanish yet. But there's still a strong Catholic presence in their politics, so they still have abortion debates all the time, and they've, gay rights have actually started coming up there as well as everywhere else. But the main thing that I notice is walking around the streets, the number of natural health practitioners, tarot card readers on the streets, actually like busking tarot card readers on the sidewalk, waiting for people to come up to them.
Is this partially due to the effects of a dual economy, as they would definitely have?
Yeah, almost certainly. But it's shocking coming from Australia and landing in a country where there are people sitting on the sidewalk getting tarot cards read. It's like, you sort of want to scream at them going, what are you doing? But yeah, it's quite common there.
Oh, okay. And how long can you see yourself staying there? I mean, is it the kind of country you will fall in love with, you think?
I don't know. Every country's got their good things and their bad things. It's definitely got a lot of geographic beauty. Where we're living, as I mentioned, is at the foot of a volcano. I'm a 20-minute drive to ski field.
Where you have your secret Rebuttal base.
It's under construction.
Right.
Slowly.
You've got the first couple of steps done.
Yep. Actually, I inspected the site. I walked to the top of the volcano and looked down the hole.
Ooh.
But,
That is so cool.
So, geographically, it's an amazing country.
Now, this is almost like grassroots activism, because you saw something that needed to be done and you went ahead and designed it. What made that leap? You said you saw that article that really pissed you off, that you really wanted to see something. Most people go, oh yeah, and then they go back to watching a current affair or something like that, or Australia's Biggest Loser, which is usually me. So I mean, I don't know why people are watching that. But so what is the thing that drives you to actually get up off your bahini and go and do something then?
I get passionate about something for a period of time, and I work my butt off on it because it feels worthwhile to me. If anything, I struggle with just sort of sitting down and doing monotonous, boring things repetitively. What I'm great at is going, that needs doing, and getting on with it. And in this particular case, like I said, I spent a year trying to find someone else that had done it for me already because I was busy enough working on other projects I had. So
you're suggesting that we harness our righteous indignation while it's at its height and ride it.
Yeah. And then, because what happened is, it kept coming back to me, the idea. It kept coming back for that year. And then one day I was sitting there, I was meant to be working on another project, another business that I have. And I spent a weekend, obsessing over the idea. I couldn't get it out of my head, and I went, I know what to do. I'll write a blog post about it. And I threw the idea out there. I wrote everything I had planned, what I wanted to do, how I wanted it to work, where I thought it would go, and all the reasons I thought it would fail. Because there's a lot of difficulties with it. It sounds quite straightforward, but the implementation, there's a lot of troubles. And so I wrote it, and I said, "Here, someone go do this. I'm too busy." And that's when I had a friend contact me that's a programmer and said, "It sounds like a great idea. I'm going to build it." And so we just partnered up, and he made it really quite quickly, like a prototype, something that basically worked. And the feedback we got from that first stage was just overwhelming.
I could see use for this in augmented reality. For example, I'm rather proudly wearing a Spice Girls T-shirt. If you had some augmented reality glasses, you could do that a real-time rebuttal with the glasses, couldn't you? Going, that's not needed in life.
Yeah, maybe in the future. It's you never know how technology is going to be used, and that's one of the cool things that's dawned on me over time is, we've built. The whole idea started off as this browser plugin, but that's not what we're building. We are building a database of connections between, a relational diagram between rebuttals on the internet, and how that's going to be used. Even we don't know. Someone else will see this resource and go, what I can do with that? I can make. Visual interface.
You see Shane, the genie's out of the bottle now.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We've still got to build it. We've still got to build that database, and that's what we're working on now. And with a bit of help, we'll get there. And then, over time, there's opportunity to be had for all sorts of people.
So get to that website and make your voice known.
Yeah, rbutr, rbutr.com, rbutr, and look forward to seeing you there.
And we're here in the bar, which has become the Skeptic's Bar, and someone's just come up to me who's a listener to the show. Where are you from?
Alexandria, Virginia.
Wow, and how did you discover the Skeptic Zone?
I'm probably through the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, I'm guessing.
Through Richard Saunders being a guest rogue.
I know I got into Skeptic Zone like a year or so ago, and I just went back to the beginning and listened to all of them from then.
Wow, right. You are quite a podcast listener. But what brought you into skepticism as well? Why did you turn up at a place like TAM?
I got first started in skepticism. I was reading psychology books in elementary school and middle school, and I wound up reading Elizabeth Loftus's book on repressed memories.
Oh, yes.
And from that, I got interested, and I wound up taking a course called Science and Pseudoscience in college, which turned out to be taught by Chip Denman, who is on the board of directors for the JRF, and through that, I got involved with skepticism and wound up coming out here and seeing him and his group put on the TAM.
Look, I've been asking everybody what their favourite paranormal is, or the one they love to hate the most. What's yours?
Okay. The thing I guess it would have to be. It'd probably be like anything to do with medical stuff, because I work in a hospital, and when I see stuff going around or I hear stuff from my coworkers, I just
Now, this leads me to my next question, which is always a good one for skeptics. When you're in the workplace and you can't tell anybody that, pardon my French, that they're in the head, how do you actually do that politely in the USA?
I've had a lot of those conversations. I'm trying to think, what have I done? Sometimes I'll talk about I'll tell them that I'm going to look something up, and I'll tell them that I found something online and show it to them.
Now, how does that usually work out? Are they a bit stubborn, or are they happy to take criticism?
It depends on the issue. Some stuff they'll be really, really stuck on. Like if it's like I had one coworker tell me about, we were talking about diets and sort of health stuff about losing weight, and she said, I don't care if it's dangerous as long as I look good. And I was like,
well, there's some amphetamines over here. You can not eat and take them for a week. You look really thin.
So I can't argue with that. So I'm like, okay, that's a conversation I can leave. But in another kind of conversation, like if they start spreading some sort of urban legend or something, I can look that up and show them that that's not that. Or they started talking about Chagas disease, because that became, somebody put out an article saying Chagas disease is the new AIDS, and yep. And I was able to tell them, like, no, we don't have the insects that spread it in our part of the U.S. You're probably not going to get it. It's not AIDS. And I showed them some of the articles about it, and they weren't freaked out about that anymore. So
how do you go watching US television? Because it's been a few years since I've been here. The television is full of ads for drugs, which are from pharmaceutical companies, which we don't have in Australia. They don't allow that yet. And so everyone must get very paranoid. There's antidepressants. There's you're too fat, you're too skinny, all these ads. So you must be shaking your fist, throwing stuff in the lounge room at the telly.
We have a TiVo, so we don't really watch commercials. But my boyfriend does get frustrated with me because I'll start yelling at the TV if we do get stuck watching something that starts talking about stuff like that, where I'll just be like that's not makes sense. Like, that's totally wrong. And
have you got any guilty pleasures? Is there a show you like to watch that's kind of amusing because it's so wrong? Like, you watch Dr. Oz every once in a while, or would you tune into an episode of Ancient Aliens, one of my favourites?
My guilty pleasure would be not in the sort of woo realm, but America's Next Top Model. Which I'm also, it does have its moments. Like, they sent them to have their horoscopes done in I can't remember where they went this year, but whatever country they went to, they had them do horoscopes and talk about how they were so right on, and they had to dress to fit their horoscope.
And also, it's almost the anti-skeptical intellectual way, because it's the person who is physically the most superficial that's going to do better. Even though they have to have a professional outlook, it's all about superficiality and being able to pretend you're superficial.
Yeah, it's totally shallow, and you'll see people talking about that they left college or med school to take a break and do this, and you're like, that's terrible, and then they're, fighting over some stupid thing, and, it's my one thing.
And how's TAM this year been for you, 2012?
It's been good. I've enjoyed a lot of the panels.
Did you see Dr. Rachy doing her stuff? Did you see Richard Saunders putting it out there like the man he is?
I did. I saw both of them, and I went to see Dr. Rachy in her workshop the first day, too. I saw her last year, too, and I saw them at SciCon last year, so I've run into them a fair amount. And
so is there any chance you're coming down to Australia and seeing how we do it in the real world down there?
Oh, we would love to, once we can get up the money to do it.
Yeah, it's a long and often expensive trip.
Yeah, it's definitely in the on the wish list of places to go. Would love to go there.
And how did you know it was me, by the way? Because you've only ever listened to the Skeptic Zone podcast. How did you recognise me?
I've seen you sitting at the table, and you do have a name tag around your neck.
Of course. How silly. Excuse my cognitive dissonance.
I was also going to say this, just reminded me with the advertising with drug companies, is it's actually gotten a lot better in the U.S.
Oh, really?
In the past, the drug companies could give out a lot of freebies to doctors, and pretty much all your pens would be from drug companies. And my mom's an internist, and she had all sorts of free pens. And she wound up, at one point, getting a bunch of free stuff from Viagra.
I actually bought a Viagra pen with me. It had a sort of a leopard print on it. It was fantastic.
Well, she got a wall clock.
Yes, is it red and white?
I'm not sure. She gave it to her brother as a joke.
Because I put it up in the office at work. It's my clock at work.
Well, this is my favorite part, though, is Viagra gave her a planter with like a little plant inside that you were supposed to grow.
Yeah.
The plant died.
Well, someone hasn't done their double-blind test on that, have they?
No, so we were a little worried about Viagra after the planter died.
Well, thank you very much for having a chat to us, and enjoy what little is left of TAM 2012.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Wow, I was just walking along here and then suddenly, Surly Ramix. We run spots for this on the Skeptic Zone. Who have we got here?
Hi, I'm Amy Davis Roth. A lot of people know me as Surly Amy. I'm one of the writers for Skeptic. I'm also managing editor for a blog called Mad Art Lab, which is about the intersection between art, science, and skepticism.
Wow. How would you describe that in one sentence? What would that intersection be?
Well, it's all about communication, and it's about being part of a larger community. So we see like a lot of work where artists are trying to explain the basic scientific processes. For example, someone will do a comic that will explain the Higgs boson and the search for the Higgs. So you can take a very complex, scientific idea and simplify it into art, and that way lay people can understand it better.
And what's the most difficult jewellery to represent? What's the most, let's see, entropy, that's a pretty hard one to get across in jewellery. Quantum entanglement, that's pretty difficult too, unless the badge swaps sides or something. Or
That's a very good point, actually. Quantum electrodynamics, things like that are very difficult. But we have things like Feynman diagrams. So we can explain, a very complex idea in a very simple design. So I'll have a Feynman diagram, which is just a drawing that shows a positron and an electron annihilating into a photon, and then I've turned that into a necklace that you can wear around your neck. So when you meet people that don't understand quantum electrodynamics, they can see that, and you can spark up a conversation and explain a little bit of science to them.
Yes, because when I first heard it on the Skeptic Zone, I went, wow, what's the skeptical jewellery? Huh? Yeah. Now, what is one that you've almost done and it hasn't quite worked, and you've got to take it back to the artistic drawing board?
I think I've had a little bit of difficulty doing some of the fossils because nature does a really good job of preserving them, but it's difficult to redraw them and recreate them. So that's something that I'm working on right now. I'm doing a lot of ammonites, and I do like the Lucy fossil, and trilobites, things like that. Those I'm working on, but they're still fun, and they're coming along nicely, I think.
I think fractals are a very beautiful, interesting thing. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in nature?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a very tough question.
That would be absolutely impossible to decide. In fact, I'm so inspired by science and nature that's what I base all my designs on.
Let's narrow it down a bit. What do you think is the most beautiful thing under a microscope?
Oh, I'm a big fan of bacteria.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I do. I love bacteria and little single cells. And
because most biological samples are very colourful or can be made colourful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of that. And color theory is really important to my work, too. So I do like the colourful pieces a lot.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the palette of colours you've got there on the jewellery, and I'm trying to find a pattern, and I can't really find a pattern or a colour. One thing I can't see is any really, really bright reds. You've got a couple of strong reds. Now, why is that?
That is because when you work with ceramics and you're heating the material up to about 2,000 degrees or higher, you have a really hard time holding on to the color red. Oh. And a lot of it is made from lead, and lead is something that you can't really use in a lot of products because it's dangerous. Yeah. So that's why it's very difficult to find really bright reds in ceramics. Yeah.
Okay. And where can we go online and find this and make some comments on your work? Go, oh, look, that's not a photorealistic photon.
Please go to surlyramics.com, surlyramics.com, and please leave me comments and tell me what you think I should make for my newest designs. I'd love to hear from you, and I hope that you have a really great time at your first town. It's a great crowd of people. Enjoy it.
The Canadian public has been poorly served by a government which displays little respect for objectivity and science. Canadians are taken advantage of through weak consumer protection regulations that allow the sale of products and services that don't work. And our media is all too willing to report dubious claims without examination if it will attract readers and sell advertising. Individual freedom of choice is being jeopardized as the unscrupulous or misinformed attempt to influence our important decisions. It's time for a change. Bad Science Watch is a new activist organization that will challenge the media, advertisers, and politicians when they promote unsound science that can threaten the well-being of Canadians. We will provide analysis of dubious scientific claims to you, our government, and the media, and campaign for policy decisions based on the best evidence available. We will take action to pressure politicians to enforce and strengthen consumer protection regulation. We will stand against the exploitation of you and your family by the peddlers of bad science. You can help us. Donate or pledge to support our campaigns and research efforts. Join our mailing list to receive action alerts and help affect real change. Tell your friends about us. Find out more at badsciencewatch.ca. Bad Science Watch. Important issues. Sound science. Real change.
Predicting is so predictable. December and January are generally slow news months in Australia. The pollies have gone home, the cricket is on TV, and we can find time to relax. It can be a testing time for the media, with column inches and tabloid TV segments to fill. But all is not lost. Enter the fortune tellers. What does the year ahead hold for us? Let's ask our resident astrologer, medium, psychic, mystic, clairvoyant. It can be hard to keep tabs on all these New Age seers, but luckily for us, at the end of each year in a report entitled Tomorrow's News Today, in the pages of the Psychic Directory magazine, members of the Australian Psychic Association give us their predictions. Presumably, these people are not your run-of-the-mill fortune tellers, but the cream of the paranormal industry. If anyone should know the future, it's them. Most of their visions are about TV and movie celebrities, with names like Nicole Kidman, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Tom Hanks popping up. In fact, since 2008, no fewer than 40 stars are mentioned. We find predictions about romance, babies, new movies and so on, but alas, very few of the many statements came true. Couples who were supposed to separate stayed together. Twins failed to appear for other couples. Elton John did not have a major health scare, and Schapelle Corby was not home in time for Christmas 2011. Now, I'm not saying that all the predictions for celebrities were wrong. Amongst the very few to be ticked correct was the death of Elizabeth Taylor, but honestly, it was hardly a surprise. Oddly enough, the death of Michael Jackson was also foretold, only it was by the well-known American skeptic Rebecca Watson. The royals are always mentioned in these predictions, and we must spare a thought for our dear Queen who abdicated in 2011 and will again in 2013. William and Kate are expecting and expecting. I predict that one day they will indeed be parents. A vital ingredient when casting a third eye into the future is to conjure up one or two predictions from left field. Things that are not likely to come true, but just like putting all your chips on Black 13, once in a while you'll hit a winner. Finally, near enough is good enough. A prediction of an earthquake in California, these happen every single day of the year, that will occur in mid-July 2010, causing havoc, particularly in San Francisco, was credited as a hit the following year. The earthquake that shook California on the 7th of July was a magnitude 5.4. Residents of California would say, so what? A rough count of the 300 or thereabouts predictions made since 2007 gives us about an 8% success rate. This figure can be argued as many predictions are vague and open to interpretation, but after the event. The bottom line is that most of what is predicted doesn't happen, and most of what happens is not predicted. The list of major events overlooked is endless, such as a certain Prime Minister being shown the door and a certain young redhead taking his place. If this were any other industry, the people concerned would be sacked for lack of performance. Now, I'm not saying that many people take all this seriously. It's like a sort of a guilty pleasure to pretend to have a sneaky look into the future. As long as it's billed as entertainment, then all well and fine, and it's only silly fun for the silly season. Only, it's not. The Psychic Directory magazine certainly gives the impression that these predictions are real, and disclaimers are not given on the tabloid TV segments. You can also bet that each of the people making those predictions also makes most or part of their living from giving private readings where it's all treated as if it were very real indeed. Life is about uncertainty. It's the core of reality and makes life both wonderful and awful. Will I meet the person of my dreams? Where am I going to be in 5 years' time? Will it be a boy or a girl? Who will win the cricket? Who will be our next Prime Minister? Will my mother survive the operation? What day will I die? If it did turn out that someone could really see what the future held for us, it would cause a dramatic and fundamental change to our lives and society in general. I predict that would be a world in which I would not want to live. The 10 golden rules of predictions. 1. Make lots of predictions. Some are bound to come true. 2. Make lots of vague predictions and mix in a few specific ones. 3. Throw in some unlikely predictions. Once in a while, some of them are bound to come true. 4. Did I mention make lots of predictions? 5. Talk about natural disasters, especially floods and earthquakes. They happen every month of the year around the world in some form or other. 6. Make sure you sprinkle your predictions with things that are on the cards for any given year, such as political unrest or the death of older celebrities or royals. 7. Crow about the predictions that do come true. 8. Don't worry about the predictions that don't come true. They will not be checked by the media. If they are, just say, I never said I was 100% accurate, or I can only go on what the cards or the spirits or the stars tell me. 9. Fudge those predictions that are partly true or can be reworked in the light of hindsight. This is also known as retrofitting. 10. Remember, you are unaccountable. Make up whatever you want. Oh, and one last rule for the media. Don't go back and check last year's predictions. It's a lot of work to research, and your audience doesn't care.
Ein großes Hallo an alle deutschen Zuhörer des Skeptic Zone Podcasts. Wusstet ihr, dass es auch in Deutschland einen Skeptikerverband gibt? Für weitere Informationen über uns und das Skeptiker Magazin besucht www.gwup.org. Ich wiederhole, www.gwup.org und unsere offiziellen Facebook, Twitter und Google Plus Seiten.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Next week's episode, all going well, will come to you from sunny California. And very soon I'll be catching up with Brian Dunning, everybody's favourite podcaster. Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. I think there's a hot tub lined up. We're going to have a think tank in the hot tub. And then I'm going on a little adventure called Skeptics in the Jeep. I think there's a Facebook page for that. Skeptics in the Jeep. All coming up. Thank you for listening once again, but until next week from California, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.